We're back with Mufi Hanneman, Mayor of the City and County of Honolulu. So, Mufi, you mentioned about the White House Fellows that you're involved in, and you also helped to create the Pacific Century Fellows here in Honolulu. Could you tell us a little bit more about that program?
Yes, the White House Fellows program is one of the most significant activities that I've ever been involved with. Basically what it was started by President Johnson through the urging of John Gardner, the father of Common Cause. And what President Johnson wanted to do was give young Americans an opportunity to work in Washington, D.C. for a year at the elbow of a cabinet secretary, of the vice president of the United States, or in the White House. Part and parcel of that everyday work experience is what they call the educational program, where they would introduce us to the movers and shakers of our country. They would allow us to travel throughout the United States and take a foreign trip. In my case, in my class in 83, 84, we went to the Middle East. We went to Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Jordan, and Israel. And the whole idea, of course, is to, as a result of that exposure in Washington, D.C., and the highest levels of government, you would take that back to your community, to your former job, and then instill forever and ever, hopefully, this desire that, you have to contribute to the betterment of your nation. In my particular case, I also got to work in the office of the vice president. So for Vice President George Bush, I got to travel a lot because that's what vice presidents do. They go to ceremonies, they go to funerals, and I went all over the world, Europe, Asia, Africa, South America. And then I also got to do domestic policy briefings for the Vice President of the United States. So it was a great, great year. I got to meet a lot of people, lifelong friends. For example, one of my White House fellow colleagues was Elaine Chao. Elaine Chao is the first Asian American woman, and she's Chinese, to be named a cabinet member. And so she is now the Secretary of Labor in the Bush administration. She's asked me on 2 occasions to serve in the administration. First of all, as a member of the President's Council in the 21st Century Workforce, and lately I'm on the Secretary of Labor Committee on Apprenticeship. So those are the kind of long-lasting friendships that you make as a result of being a White House Fellow. So when I returned to Honolulu, I knew that I wanted to create a similar type of experience, recognizing full well that not everyone from Hawaii has the time or can make the sacrifice to uproot themselves and move to Washington, D.C. for a year. So I came up with this idea of a Pacific Century Fellows program where it's all about leadership. It's all about identifying the leaders of tomorrow, many of whom are already leading our community today. And on a once-a-month basis, give them an opportunity to come together as a class and focus in on an issue. This present class in January, after they met initially to sort of identify what they wanted to do, they heard from interesting speakers such as Joe Rice of Mid-Pacific Institute, who talked about how he overcame adversity in his life. And then, of course, David Heenan, the noted author and Campbell Estate trustee, who just wrote a book called Flight Capital. And as a result of that weekend that they spent together, they've identified issues that they want to focus on. So for the first 3 months, for example, this current class of Pacific Century Fellows had a Criminal Injustice Day in December. In January this month, they'll be focusing on Government Day, where they'll be looking at issues at the state and county level and the federal level. And then in February, they'll have Military Day, where Admiral Fallon, a SINCPAC commander, will host them, and they'll look in depth at the military. In between, we expose them to interesting speakers. For example, Sir Derek Mon, who's the chair of the KKR Group, Asia, the largest private equity firm in the world. He was vacationing with his family over Christmas vacation, so we exposed him to Sir Mon, who doesn't do any other speaking engagements while he's in Hawaii. And if he does, he charges a fee. But he didn't do it because it's the Pacific Century Fellow. So this is our 8th class of fellows. I'm very pleased to be identified with them. I see not only is it an opportunity to identify the future leaders of tomorrow, but they bond together like a college graduation class, like a high school graduation class. And what we do too is we have them sort of network with each other. So with the 8 classes of fellows, there'll be a reunion coming up shortly where we bring back all the other fellows classes, and then they get to see each other. And then it's interesting how business relationships develop, how they tend to volunteer for projects in the community. It's all about nurturing good leadership for tomorrow.
So the process of actually choosing these fellows is rigorous. What would you recommend for people that are wanting to be a part of this program to prepare, how should they best prepare?
Well, we have a website that they should go to, pacificcenturyfellows.net, and I would recommend that they do that to look at the application process and also look at the fellows that have gone through the program. And then I would talk story with one of them and get a better idea of what the year was like, and also in terms of asking questions in terms of preparing for the application process. Application process is basically a written form that all fellows are asked to do, and based on that, they are chosen for in-depth interviews that happen. And then we have a distinguished panel of judges from the community made up of all kinds of folks from different parts of the island. They're Democrats, Republicans, Independents. So we really want a good mix of people that are selected. I don't choose them. This distinguished panel of judges chooses them. And I would also say to them, and this is coming from someone who didn't win his first race for mayor, took me the second time around. Don't be discouraged if you don't get selected the first time around. We have people who have applied 2-3 times before they got selected. The only thing that will guarantee you that it'll be a good year. It'll be a good year because of the quality of people that you'll meet, not only within the fellows class, but the topics that we'll expose you to, and then the added benefit is the networking that takes place between the first class of fellows and the third class of fellows and the eighth class of fellows. It's invaluable. In fact, people tell me today that as they developed their businesses, as they expanded their businesses, they called upon an attorney that they met in the fellows program. They called upon an architect that they met in the fellows program. They call upon an engineer, and they sort of put together a hooey of folks based on this fellows experience.